My last story about CFexpress Type A versus Type B cards generated a lot of feedback, to say the least. Essentially, the discussion is broken into two camps. Let's call the first camp Type A. This group prefers dual CFexpress Type A and SD card slots in their current cameras, like the Sony a7 IV and the soon-to-be-announced a7 V, as well as other Sony cameras. This is because they provide a greater flexibility and allow the use of CFexpress Type A or SD cards in both card slots. None of this mixing and matching. And I agree. In the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, I only shoot with a single CFexpress Type B card because, well, SD cards limit performance and won't even let me shoot 4K 120, as well as other modes such as 8K or, well, we don't have OpenGate, but that's a different story. Yep, with some modes, we are limited by having an SD card and a CFexpress card in the same camera. But when I travel to far-off places, I do pop in a V90 SD card for backup. Now the second camp, let's call them Type B, they prefer the raw speed of CFexpress Type B V4 cards, allowing them to clear the buffer much faster, to shoot much faster, without any limits placed on their performance. And CFexpress Type B V4 cards, they do offer much greater performance with twice the number of PCIe lanes, delivering speeds of up to 3.15 gigabytes per second sustained write speeds on 2 terabyte Angelbird cards or 800 megabytes per second sustained write speeds on Type A cards. And it's very important to note here, I had several comments saying, no, Simon, Type A cards are much faster. You've got to completely disregard those max write speeds and read speeds because for that to be accurate, all a card has to do is for a single bit to hit that speed. It can significantly drop down after that. What you want to look out for is the sustained write speed. What's the maximum sustained write speed? And what you'll find out is that for most of them, it's significantly faster than their max write speeds, depending on the company. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to stick to Angelbird cards because they post both the sustained and maximum speeds all on their website. And again, going back to that 3.15 gigabytes per second sustained write speed on those Type B V4 cards, and those are some pretty incredible shooting speeds, aren't they? I mean, 3.15 gigabytes per second sustained write speeds. But if I'm honest, and I am, there isn't a single camera on the marketplace right now that supports CFexpress 4.0 V4. What does that mean? Well, they support CFexpress 2.0 V3, which means a maximum sustained writing speed that the camera can output is 1.48 gigabytes per second, or 1.5 gigabytes per second. So is there any real benefit to Type B? Well, yes. So cameras like the Nikon Z9, what they can do is deliver 20 frames per second lossless RAW at 45 megapixels, and that's going to be about 1.2 gigabytes per second. So you could actually take that 20 frames per second lossless RAW and bump it up to 30 or even 40, and that's really powerful. But the real benefit to CFexpress Type B cards, especially V4, isn't actually inside the camera when you're writing to them. It's in offloading and transcoding. I came back from Vancouver in the summer of 2025 with 1.1 terabytes of stills and video. Not gigabytes, but terabytes. And my 2 terabyte CFexpress Type B V4 card, with its transfer speed of 3.15 gigabytes per second, saved me an awful lot of time. And that impacted my workflow. But I'm not here to convince either camp that they're wrong in their opinion. I just want to show you something very interesting. I wanted to see how large each camp is. Do more people prefer Type B cards or Type A cards, or what about SD cards and even CFast cards? And when the wider market has a certain preference, how does that compare to Sony customers? Do Sony customers have a stronger affinity to Type A cards over Type B cards or even SD cards? Well, let's get right to it. In the first poll aimed at the wider market, with a sample size of 400, just under 1% said they preferred CFast cards. 21% said they preferred SD cards. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. Only 7% said they preferred Type A cards, and the vast majority, 71%, said they preferred CFexpress Type B cards. And those results don't really surprise me. Well, actually, no, that's not true. There is one result there that did surprise me. is that we still have people preferring CFast cards. Not that people aren't using CFast cards, but that they actually prefer it. Going back to Type B V4 cards, they're newer, they're faster, and they allow us to get content off the cards quicker and transcode quicker. But I hear the Type A camp. In cameras like the R5 Mark II, I'm limited to the performance of the SD card, or I lose redundancy and just shoot with a single Type B card, and that's annoying. This is not an option. Certain modes such as 4K 120 or 8K don't allow me to record to both cards at the same time. So if I have dual recordings set, well, I have to turn it off for those modes. So to Type A, you're right. Canon, Nikon, and Panasonic, in your high-end cameras, please, in your next refresh, put in dual CFexpress Type B card slots. None of the CFexpress Type B and SD card slot. It's a silly thing. There's no reason at all that you can't put them in the R5, the Z8, or the S1. Now, these cameras do have room inside. They have the thermal architecture to support them, especially the R5 Mark II with its huge cavernous, I would like to call them heat pipes, but it's like a central ballroom, if anything. Now, whenever I get a chance, I do push Canon and Nikon to give us dual CFexpress Type B card slots. I agree with the Type A camp that having a single CFexpress Type B and an SD card doesn't make sense. It is not the solution. It's part the way there. And many Canon and Nikon shooters would agree with that. But the transfer speed? Well, it's so large that it's worth the annoyance. But now it's time to see what Sony customers prefer in their cameras. And right here, this is where the thumbnail gets its mileage. There are some, how shall we say, some pretty big surprises. I asked Sony customers the exact same question in the same amount of time, and I got a sample size of 100, and this is what they had to say. 2% preferred CFast cards, 13% preferred SD cards, but only 18% preferred Type A cards. And that was a surprise, because if you're doing your math all along here, well, you know what's coming next. Type B cards? The response was very surprising to me. 66% of Sony customers polled preferred Type B cards. I was surprised by this. This is only 5 percentage points lower than the wider market. This tells me that most Sony customers would prefer to see CFexpress Type B cards, but Type A and SD customers are very vocal, as are some Sony reps. And if I know this, well, I'm sure that Sony does as well. So Sony, I know you're watching and listening. When it comes to cameras, high-end cameras like the A7R5, the Alpha 1 Mark II, or the A9 Mark III, why are you holding out? Why aren't you giving us dual CFexpress Type B card slots, at least in the next refresh? And for those of you that don't like a mix of SD and CFexpress Type B cards, well, unless shooting 4K 120 or need that really high burst speed, put in a V90 SD card and use it as backup. Using a CFexpress card to offload content and transcode is perfect. It works well, and it doesn't get in the way. Just remember when you put your cards back in that your default card doesn't change, because, at least with my cameras, it does. And I'm not saying that Type A cards don't have their place. Quite the opposite. I would actually, and this is probably going to shock some Canon customers, but I would actually like to see more affordable cameras like the R8 follow-up, the Nikon Z50, or even the R7, to actually have dual CFexpress Type A card slots, giving us a higher rate than SD cards and dual for both slots. Or I don't think there's a need to really do dual Type A and SD cards like Sony does. I don't think I should say this. I'll definitely get some hate mail. But what do you think? Should Sony embrace dual CFexpress Type B cards for high-end cameras like the A1, the A9, and the A7R5? And Canon, Nikon, and Sony, thank you for giving us CFexpress card slots. But please, in your next revisions of your cameras, the Canon EOS R5 Mark III, the Nikon Z8 Mark II, and the S1H Mark II, whenever that one comes out, please give us CFexpress, dual CFexpress Type B card slots. CFexpress 4.0, it doesn't hurt. If you want to do 2.0, that's fine, but at least give us dual card slots. It really, really matters. Have I left anything out here? Oh, yes. So a few comments kind of talked about overheating, and I've been shooting with the R5 Mark II for over a year now, a year and a half, in the heat, in the cold, and I've never had it overheat. And even that kind of warning thing hasn't come on. If you're getting overheating with your Canon EOS R5 Mark II or the Mark I, make sure you're on the latest firmware update, but go in and make sure some of your settings are, what is it? There's a heat management setting. You want to have that set on high. I forgot what it is. And then two below it, there's another one that will drop to a lower resolution on the LCD. And those are important things, but I've got them written down somewhere, and just make sure you have your camera set up. But I've shot for hours, and when I do these live streams, they're shot with the R5 Mark II, and quite often I'm going 3 hours, sometimes even 4 hours, and no sign of overheating. So they're architected, they can handle it. It's just a little bit frustrating. Anyhow, if you have overheard anything else that you can share with us, let's say you overheard a conversation about the A7 IV, the A7 R6, new lenses that are supposed to be coming out by Canon, then please reach out to me at simondyates@gmail.com so I can share it with my viewers. And stay tuned and subscribe for more. That just didn't come out right. Stay tuned and subscribe for more, as more is coming out soon. And if you're looking to spend your year-end cash, you're coming up to the end of the year and you've got some extra money left over, every camera maker has a large discount. And I'm talking big discounts, pre-price hike discounts. Remember those discounts that we had Christmas last year? The Nikon Z8 is $34.96. The Z9, $51.96. The R5, $27.99. The R5 Mark II, $38.99. And over at Panasonic, the GH7 is $17.97. And the S5 Mark II is $500 off. Sony's even got some great discounts with the A7 R5 at $900 off and the Sony A7 IV at $700 off. And again, please use my affiliate links if you're going to take advantage of these sales. I have links to B&H in the United States, Wex Photo and Video in the United Kingdom, and Photoca in Europe. Thanks so much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye. What's that, Ryan? Oh, yeah, you might notice that Adorama isn't on there right now. That's not because I've kicked Adorama to the curb. It's because they're moving to a new system, and we're in the process of setting that up, and it wasn't fully set up in time for this video. So probably the next video that comes out will have Adorama back on there. Anyhow, thanks so much for tuning in, and let me know what you think. This could be, I'm almost afraid to check the comments because I think this could be polarizing. But again, let me talk about the sample size. So what was interesting is at the time, I gave a certain amount of time for each sample size, and I made sure that they were pretty much the same. I had 400 responses for the wider market poll, and then just around 100 for the one that I was targeting at Sony customers. And I know what you're saying. Well, how do we know that they were actually Sony customers and weren't other customers, or they just people trying to change the numbers? Sure, I mean, that's always a possibility, and I can't answer that question. There's no way of validating that. But what was very interesting is when I aimed it at Sony customers, the number of responses dropped significantly. So that tells you that people aren't just responding. They're curious by this information. And I was really surprised that even Sony customers, the vast majority of them, would like to see CFexpress Type B card slots in their cameras. Very interesting. But I do think that all camera manufacturers can learn from each other. I think Type A makes an awful lot of sense in mid to lower end Canon cameras. The R8, the R7, dual CFexpress Type B makes a lot of sense. Higher end cameras, dual CFexpress Type B. Anyhow, so that's just my thought. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you again soon.